Hello everybody, and welcome to this installment of the Lexby eDiscovery webinar series. This installment is on best practices for eDiscovery search, and we'll cover some advanced searching techniques. A little bit about the webinar series before we get started. They take place monthly and cover a variety of topics. If during the webinar you experience issues, please email webinars@lexby.com and we'll address them. After the webinar, we will make available a YouTube video of this presentation, the PDF version of the slide deck, an MP3, and some more materials, and we can email those to you. You can email us to request them. My email address is cdtrude@lexby.com, and I'll show that to you after the presentation as well. A little bit about our speaker today. Our speaker is Erin Derby. Erin is an eDiscovery specialist here at Lexby. She is certified as an eDiscovery specialist through ACEDS, and she is a litigation paralegal with 10 years experience practicing both plaintiff and defense law. And with that, I will turn things over to Erin for the presentation.
Thank you, Christian. Good morning. Thank you, everyone, for attending this webinar today regarding best practices for eDiscovery search. Quickly, we'll go over today's agenda, which will consist of the following topics: understanding how the eDiscovery search indexes work and what they are, how using the multi-index approach will help you prevent missing critical case data in your searches. We'll talk about the pros and cons of keyword searching in general, how to construct quality search queries. We will talk about search expanders and search limiters. We will talk about, finally, testing your keyword search results to make sure that you've gotten the most out of your queries and keyword searching. We'll wrap it all up with some practice tips and an overview about what we've talked about today. By way of introduction, obviously everybody here knows that eDiscovery is coming whether we're ready or not. So it's best to understand how to keep your client's costs down, your firm's costs down, and still make your deadlines when we're talking about reviewing potentially millions of documents that are coming in quickly. And how do you get through those? It can be one of the most intimidating aspects of litigation in today's legal world, especially if you're someone who's used to using binders and sticky notes in the more traditional way of document review. Hopefully by the end of today's webinar, you'll be more apt at finding the needle in your ESI haystack with speed and efficiency, and most importantly, accuracy for all of your current and upcoming cases. To start with, we'll talk about the search indexing types. Generally, when I say search indexing, I mean the way that the platform that you're using processes the information in the documents at the time of ingestion into your various platforms. There are two types of search indexing. One is image-based, meaning that the search results are generated only from imaged or OCR documents that capture image-based text. These are your PDFs and your TIFF files that have text inside of them, and at the time of ingestion, your platform will be able to read them in a way that makes the text searchable. The second type is native extraction, and that actually pulls in any text that's excluded from the print or the image-based index, and will also pull in hidden or embedded text, and it will convert your native file into a PDF that will then make that searchable. That is obviously a very important tool if you're talking about being able to see header information, footer information, to ensure that an Excel cell is not clipped. If you have a lot of information in one Excel cell, for example, and you run it through the image-based index, you will only get the part of the cell that is visible to the eye. You will not get the entire sentence, for instance, or formula or number. You'll only get what's visible on the screen. Lexby offers a multi-index, which is a combination of these two types of indexing, and they're actually run simultaneously. Other platforms may have these two different types of indexing available, but I am unsure whether they are run simultaneously. This is something that you would have to check with your individual vendors and platform providers to see if you have the multi-index approach available. Additionally, you find yourself having a foreign client or foreign company that you're in litigation with, Lexby offers an additional index that can search across translated documents and uses the multilingual search index, and will also use a foreign language concept search. The concept search is a eDiscovery search term that we will cover later in the webinar generally. The multi-index index that I mentioned before that Lexby uses, it actually indexes the text extracted from the native file at the same time that it's creating a paginated file from the native and also OCRing it. So it's taking all the information from the native file as well as any other information from the image extracted index and putting it into a PDF version that allows you to search across it. And like I mentioned, Lexby will also do the same on any translated versions of that document. That is a very comprehensive approach, and it will minimize your potential to lose data that may have been hidden as far as the track changes, like I mentioned, or other information that's contained in a header or a footer of a document. You can see the table that I've provided here on the differences in the two types of indexing methods, as well as what the Lexby multi-index method offers comparatively. Here is an example of how the multi-index index works. You can see from the image on the left, the native extraction picks up the changed text. You can see balance statement sheet is struck through. But you can see on the right, that is just an OCR-based index or the image-based index of the exact same document, but it does not extract the balance statement strike through. So you can see the changes that were made on this document. Now we'll move on to actual use of the keyword search in Discovery, the steps that we're going to go through and how to implement them to most effectively work through your case and the various issues and procedural postures involved in your litigation. We're going to talk about early stage culling, how to just right off the bat reduce the amount of ESI that you need to review. We'll talk about how to use keywords, date ranges, and custodians to initially cull these document collections. We'll talk about how to use keyword-based responsive and privilege review. This will involve using search queries. We'll talk about how to ID documents for deposition prep for specific witnesses, impeachment of experts, etc. And finally, we'll talk about how to identify key documents for trial and how best to use the work that you've already done and your other steps to apply them to your hot docs for trial. The pros of keyword searching are obviously that it's fast. You can type in any word into your search box and you're going to get your results very quickly, and it's going to be much more effective than actually going through document by document to look for the word that you're searching for. It can be inexpensive. That depends on your platform and how much time and how many documents you have, but obviously the time that you'll spend searching using a platform search function is going to take a lot less time than going through each page by page inside of a binder in the traditional sense. Your search is going to deliver high quality results. It's going to be able to look through documents that just the human eye may not be able to read efficiently. It may be user error. It could be somebody is tired and they missed something. The search engine will not do that. And this goes right into the last point, is that search results, these are computer generated, and therefore the human errors that can occur from what I just mentioned will not be possible. On the flip side, there are some cons. Your search could be over or under inclusive. The terms can bring back too many junk results, or you could even miss good results. We'll talk about how to avoid this a little bit later on, but you have false positives. That is a document that comes through that responds to your search query, but it doesn't have anything to do with what you're really looking for. And you'll also have false negatives, and these are the really bad ones, that you search for something and you didn't get a result, but there is a result inside of your corpus of documents that just wasn't picked up for whatever reasons. We'll talk about how to avoid those as well. It's very hard to create good search terms until you practice, and you'll have to do some searching. We refer to the search process as an iterative process, meaning that it's going to evolve over time. The more that you work with your documents, the more searches that you run, the more that you understand how your client refers to a document type that you might call something else. Let's say contract versus agreement or trade versus barter. Those sort of things is very sensitive in the search, and if you're not searching for the right thing, you're not going to get good results. There will be instances where you come across non-searchable text. Again, if your platform does not have a multi-index approach or it does not have a combination of the two, image-based and native extraction, you'll automatically run into issues with non-searchable text. And finally, this point is difficult to really prove and hammer into, but some file types just can't be indexed. And that can be for a variety of reasons. The file could be corrupt. You could have a file type that is just not readable by the platform that you have, or there just may not be information that's necessarily important to your case to be reviewed. So these are all things that we'll talk about how to avoid and how to remedy a little bit later on. There are some alternatives to using search in the traditional sense that I'm talking about here today. One of those is predictive coding. I'm sure that most of you have seen articles regarding this technology-assisted review idea. This is very good for huge cases. You can use this to identify documents for your production. And what you basically do here is you train the seed of documents. There's algorithms, and it will mark things responsive or non-responsive based on whatever algorithm is detected in that initial seed set. There's also the manual review of all documents. Some cases are not that large, and it's feasible for one attorney or a review team to get through them. If you don't have a very large case and you have a budget that allows it, there's nothing wrong with doing a linear review of your documents, meaning document by document, and marking them accordingly that way. To construct your quality searches, you're going to want to start with your request for production, obviously, or your subpoena. You'll translate those into your search queries and your keywords and determine your strategy. You're going to want to interview your custodians. Talk to them. What do you think is in your email that would be helpful to this case? What kind of terminology do you use to refer to the documents that I'm going to be looking for? This goes right into the next point of including jargon. This is industry or company-specific terms, culture-specific terms, any abbreviation or acronyms that you might not be familiar with, but that would be important to search for to find the documents that you need. We're going to talk about how to use something called the fuzzy search, as well as Boolean limiters in searching for documents, but this will help you get through any documents that may have misspellings in them, a word that is consistently misspelled, or a person's name that is consistently misspelled. There are ways to ensure that you're getting all of the documents necessary to respond to whether it's a discovery request in the traditional sense or subpoena ducis tecum for documents. This puts us into the next topic of search expanders, which basically expands the documents that you're generating by your search and reduces your false negatives. The first one we'll talk about is a fuzzy search. Fuzzy search is the one I mentioned that will help you pull in documents that have words in them that are consistently misspelled. This could be for a variety of reasons. You could have somebody that thinks they know somebody's name and spells it wrong every single time, or you, as the reviewer, could see somebody's name and think that you're spelling it right, but every time you type it in the search box, you're actually spelling it wrong. It will also cover anything that is converted differently in the OCR process. For instance, the example I have here is the word litigation would find also litigation with a 3 instead of a G. Sometimes OCR can misread a word and it will convert it differently, but by clicking a fuzzy search button, whatever you type in that box will find anything that looks similar, substantially similar to the document you're looking for, and it will eliminate the possibility for not returning documents that might otherwise be there, except that they're spelled incorrectly. A phonics search looks for words that sound like the word being searched and will begin with the same letter. So phonics search, for instance, if you search for invoice, you would also pull in investors, infection, investment. The next search expanders that we'll talk about, this one, concept. I think that concept is one of the best tools to use when you're looking for a search beyond a specific keyword to related concepts. So we're talking about a search with a concept enabled for the term injury. You're going to return documents that include the term injury as well as its derivatives like injuring and injuries. But it will also return a concept search on injury that would mention the word trauma, abrasion, wound. So when you think about this in the litigation sense, you can imagine there are a lot of words where this would come in handy. Think contract, you have agreement or policy, you have damage, injury, harm, loss, or even negligence. You would have failure, neglect, oversight, disregard. All of these things would be important potentially to what you're looking for, but somebody might not use the same word that you're searching for when they're talking about something in their email or in another document that you wouldn't otherwise find by just searching the word injury without clicking the concept search. The stemming tool will extend a search to cover grammatical variations of a word. So this one is pretty self-explanatory, but for instance, search for the word fish would also find fishing. Here's an example of a fuzzy search using a screenshot of the Lexby software. You can see here that there is a person that I'm looking for. I know his last name is Fasto, but I don't know exactly how it's spelled. I type in F-A-S-T-O. I don't get a lot of results the first time I look for it, and I think, okay, well, maybe I'm not spelling this right. So I come back again, and I click the fuzzy search box here on the left, and now you can see I have realized that I've spelled Fasto wrong. It's actually F-A-S-T-O-W, and now I have 698 results of documents that have something mentioning Mr. Fasto. The phonics search example, this again just shows you, I type in invoice, I click the checkbox next to phonics search on the left, and I'm returning investigations and investment and investor. The concept search that I mentioned, that's basically like a thesaurus for your search terms. Here I've put in the word trade, and I've clicked concept search, and so you'll see I return swap as well. This might also pull in barter and any other word that is synonymous with the word trade. And the most simple to understand, the stemming search example, type in the word trade and you're going to get traded, trading. And so you see here the stemming search box is checked, and you can see that the word trade is in the search box, and it's also pulled in the word trading. Boolean operators are a great way to expand your search, but also really cull the documents down to a very specific string that you're looking for. There are basic Boolean operators that we'll talk about here, but the Boolean search function really goes far and wide, and you can add and take away these Boolean operators. You can put them into a string and really, really hammer down into a large group of documents and narrow it down to a few. So obviously, and is going to return results including both terms. Apple and banana will give you documents that have the words apple and banana in them. Or is going to give you at least one of the terms, apple or banana, will return all documents mentioning either of those. The not will exclude terms you don't want. The parentheses will be used to separate or statements from the rest of the Boolean string. So you're searching for one, you're searching for apple or banana, close paren, not cherry. So that would be how that would be used. You'll use parentheses sort of the same way that you think of it in order of operations in mathematics. You'll do the or statement first inside or whatever's inside the parentheses. This /pre/n operator basically will allow you to search for terms that don't precede the second term by more than this variable and a number of words. So recently I had a client who was doing a privilege review, and one of the attorneys in their firm had the last name of Murphy. We type in the word Murphy, and it's a common name, but it's not as common as Smith or Johnson. And so we thought that maybe Murphy would return results only regarding this particular attorney's emails. We found, however, that there's somebody else involved in the case, whether it be an employee of another entity, a third party, the client. There's somebody else named Murphy. So we had to narrow that down by using the gentleman's first name, we'll say John, and last name Murphy. The way that we would do that, we would set up the Boolean operator to say John pre/to Murphy. That would return only documents that had the words John and Murphy within 2 words of each other. So you're going to pretty much return only documents that have the name John Murphy in them. Your wildcard characters are going to be helpful when you're looking for derivatives of words or other ways to look for them other than the stemming search that we talked about. The wildcard characters can be thought of in the same way. Your asterisk replaces the letter in your search term, so we'll replace one letter and we'll return any results where you're not sure what the last letter is of the word you're looking for. The exclamation point will automatically allow for a stemming search when you choose a Boolean query. So here's an example of that pre-N Boolean operator that I showed you. Our example here is from the famous Enron case. So we're searching for any documents with the name Lay within 5 words of the word equity. So you can see we've chosen the Boolean operator here to indicate to our platform that we want the Boolean operators to be guiding the search engine here. And we've done Lay within 5 words of the word equity, and here we've returned 2 documents. And this is out of thousands and thousands of documents. So you can see how those Boolean operators can really help you nail down exactly what you're looking for if you're especially looking for a hot doc in preparation of a depo or another type of hearing. One thing that we've all run into in the legal world, especially as this eDiscovery has become more prevalent, as well as the opportunity for e-filing in the federal courts. I know many of us understand that this redaction in the federal courts of personally identifiable information is very important, and the court does not take kindly to accidentally letting somebody's personal information through in a public forum. So the first thing that we'll talk about is probably the most sensitive PII, personally identifiable information, and that's our social security number. Obviously, we keep these close to us because somebody gets these in the wrong hands and you basically have access to anything that we've ever done, and the court is especially not happy when you accidentally let one of these documents with a social security number through. But it's hard to know exactly when there is a social security number without looking at every single document. Obviously, you know, on somebody's medical form or an application for a job, there might be a social security number for a background check listed, but there's other places inside of documents where you might not automatically look. So to search for PII using a Boolean operator, you can use the equal sign as a wildcard, and then you can apply it as a sequence of 9 digits. So you'll see here in my examples, there are 3 ways that social security numbers are typically recorded. The first one you'll see I have 3 of those equal signs, a space, 2, a space, and then 4. Again, we'll do the same thing in the second example with no spaces, and the third with dashes, which is another traditional way that social security numbers are written. This will return any documents that have numbers in this sequence of 3 to 4. You can also search the word SSN, obviously, and social security number, and that will point you in the direction. But for an instance where the word social security number or the abbreviation SSN does not precede the numbers, these first 3 examples will be a really great way for you to look in and make sure that you're not going to e-file something with somebody's social security number on it. The same procedure and logic is used for credit card numbers, birthdays, phone numbers, or anything else really from a numerical sense that you need to extract and redact from documents prior to production. Here's an example looking for phone numbers. Area code, first 3 digits, last 4. If you do that in the sequence 334, you're going to see anything that's listed in a numerical sense that follows the 334. This could also be used for account numbers, anything that you think may need to be redacted, or something that may be important if you're looking at a call log to see if somebody is telling the truth about where they were or whether they speak to somebody. You can always use this to look on the call log as well, or find a call log if you're looking at thousands of documents and you need to find where the call log is in your corpus of documents. You could try this phone number technique and you will come across it. So search limiters, in other respects, you can talk about this in terms of filtering out your unneeded file types. There are some file types that just don't contain information that is readable or that would make sense to a common person looking at your documents. They would be computer files. They could also be, there are file types called PNGs that are usually used to indicate a logo in somebody's email. So you have your firm's logo down there at the bottom of your signature block. Sometimes that's extracted out as a standalone document and actually will be converted to a PDF. If you want to filter out those type of files before you go in to run your searches, you will dramatically decrease the number of files that are included in your searching documents. A list of those could be provided, the document types that you could exclude by or if you'd like more information on this particular topic, we can talk more about that on an individual basis. You can also use your Boolean modifiers to limit your overly expansive searches. So again, being an iterative process, this idea of searching is going to evolve the more that you do it. So the first time you put in a keyword, you might say, wow, I can't work with 10,000 documents. I did not expect this to return this many. But then you look through a couple of the documents and you see, well, this one is important and it has the keyword I used, but it also includes this other word that seems to follow it every time the document is responsive. So at that point, you can modify your search to a Boolean search that would exclude certain words or combinations, and it would also specify word order. This can also be important if you're doing a privilege search and you just do a blanket search for the words work product. A lot of emails will be titled attorney-client or work product so that those are not discoverable at the time of production. However, most of us that are involved in the legal world also have this word work product in our email disclaimer at the bottom of our email. Obviously, if we search for the word work product, not everything that is exchanged between people that have the word work product in their email disclaimer is necessarily privileged. So you can set up your Boolean modifiers so that the string of words surrounding your email disclaimer and the word work product will not be pulled in, but the word work product, as you might write it in a subject line of an email, would be returned. So you're getting a good privilege result there instead of all the junk emails that don't have anything to do with what you're looking for. So this goes into testing your keyword searching results. You're going to want to look at the results returned each time that you search. Did I search for the right word? Should I go back and use a concept search? Is there another way that I could phrase this to get more results or less results depending on what you do? Do I need to consult with my client and ask them if this seems correct? Do I need to talk to the custodian and make sure that I've actually searched everything that I need to search? This is how you're going to sample and look for the ways to limit your search. You're going to try some new queries maybe and just make sure you've gotten the best results that you can. Did I get new documents? What could I have done differently to get a better result? You might want to add keywords. The more you review documents, you might find that there's another word you didn't think of initially that actually has a lot to do with what you're looking for, and you might want to go back and add that in later. And finally, you want to do your fuzzy and your concept search for anything that you think did not return an expected result. Try turning on your fuzzy and concept search just to make sure that somebody's not spelling somebody's name wrong consistently, somebody is not referring to a contract as an agreement or as a policy. These will just help you feel the best that you've done your due diligence for your client in searching the documents in the best possible way. Generally, to help your searchability, you need to understand your data collection. So you need to understand what's in your document collection. What types of files in there? Where did they come from? What is available for me to convert to a searchable format? Not everything can be indexed or searched. And some of this data will need processing. Processing meaning perhaps your IT department in-house or your vendor will be able to look into why a document's not converting, or if a document looks like it would be something that would convert. Let's say you have an Excel document that's not converting properly. There's a chance, and it's likely, that that Excel document may be corrupted, and you may have to go back to your client or your adversary and ask for a better copy, or you may need to see if there's something that your vendor or provider can do to push that document through to conversion. But you won't know that until you actually look through the type of documents that you're searching. This goes into understanding the software that you're using for processing and searching. Go through your training with your provider and your vendor, and get your paralegal involved and make sure that everybody understands how these documents are ingested and how they're going to be searchable. Do you have the dual index? Do you have a multi-index? Do you only have one? How are you going to find the information that's hidden in the document location, like the header data fields versus the body content fields that we talked about in the native versus image-based extraction? Understanding that if your indexing tools that your platform is using cannot open a file or see certain types of data within the file, it won't be able to index the document, and therefore the data will not be searchable. So again, this is something that is on a platform and vendor specific basis. So make sure that you are checking with your providers to make sure that your platform has the best indexing capabilities for what you need it to do. So we're going to talk about some practice tips as an overview here before we wrap up. We talked about planning your document strategy in advance. That goes into understanding what documents have been produced, who produced them, where did they come from, what do they have to do with, have I talked to that custodian? You're going to want to write out your request for production. You're going to want to make sure that you've searched for date ranges initially. You're going to want to come up with your keywords, your search strings, your custodians, and go into your already culled documents that you've done in the very beginning and look at the request at hand. Have you searched for everything that's necessary to be as responsive as possible? You're going to want to come up with any and all potential privilege terms. Include a person's email extension, the firm name, the company name, nicknames that the person might use, Charles versus Charlie, Greg versus Gregory, etc. Any additional or home email addresses that may have been used by you or your client to discuss the case, as well as any assistants or paralegals that you may have had send information between you and a client or you and one of your colleagues regarding the case. This is important to remember because searching for privilege across these documents can be a daunting task, but it's better to be over-inclusive and really protect yourself and your client rather than accidentally let something slip through because you forgot to search somebody's home email address and it didn't come up in your search of that person's name. Using your keywords, you'll be able to cull your document collections down significantly if you choose the right ones and evolve your search as the case progresses. I recommend, and we recommend this to our clients in general, make sure that when you set up your keyword search, you're recording exactly what you are searching, what the name of the person that you're searching, what their name is, what the actual search string that you applied, and you need to record this for every keyword that you have. This will protect you in the event that you receive a deficiency letter, or even worse, a motion to compel, or even worse than that, a motion for sanctions because your adversary alleges that you didn't produce something. You can always go back and show them your search strings and what you searched and what results you got, and that will be your backup, and that will be your proof to the judge that you did your due diligence and you searched everything that you possibly could have to garner the results needed to respond to your opposing counsel's request or subpoena. By doing this and focusing on your keyword-based responsive and privilege review, you should be able to get through a lot of documents quickly and efficiently. And again, accuracy is the most important thing here. And if you do these steps the way that we've described, you'll find that you'll be saving yourself a lot of time and your clients a lot of money, which they always like. Simultaneously, while you're coding these documents for searchability and you're doing your keyword searches, you can also go ahead and code them for trial and depositions. There will be documents that come up consistently that are important. You're going to want to pull them out at a depo as an exhibit. You're going to want to pull them out in a hearing. You're going to want to attach them to a summary judgment motion. You know that you're going to likely mark this one for trial. If you do these things, you're thinking ahead and you prepare ahead of time for the steps down the road and you code things all at the same time, you're going to save yourself a lot of time later. You can always go back and filter on documents that you've marked for a certain person's deposition or as a potential trial exhibit. And the last thing, again, it's important. People make mistakes. People spell people's names wrong. Do the best you can to apply the fuzzy search to include your misspellings in keyword searches. You would be surprised how many documents come back because somebody juxtaposed an I or an E, and you're not going to get the result unless it's spelled perfectly right if you're not using that fuzzy search. Again, this is just another overview of what you need to use in your eDiscovery searching to get the best results. The concept and phonics search that we talked about, in addition to the fuzzy and stemming search, your Boolean search operators. You can highlight the keywords that come through that have the most results and that seem like they're the best results for you. You're going to want to make sure that you're indexing extracted text and the native paginated file types that we talked about at the beginning of the webinar. Make sure that your platform has what you need to have the most effective review, and make sure you understand where your search results are coming from. This is the dual index approach, whether it's running simultaneously or you need to run two separate searches to get the results from the native files as well as the image files. And use your search expanders to open up the documents for misspellings, different derivatives of the word type. If you do these things, you will get the best results, and you will find that you don't have to keep going back and wondering if you did everything that you could do to get the best results. I think that about wraps it up. There is an email address available if you have any questions that we're not able to answer today. Feel free to email me personally, and I'm happy to give you a call or talk to you more about what I've talked about today. And in the event that you need future help, we are always here at Lexby to help you with any of your eDiscovery needs.
Thank you, Erin, and thank you again, everybody, for attending the webinar. As I mentioned before, we will be making available a recorded streaming version, MP3 version, and a PDF of these slides, and I'll email those out to everybody here shortly after the webinar. If you have questions about the webinar, the material covered, or you'd like to see the Lexby platform or ask general questions about eDiscovery, please contact me. My email address is right here. It's cvtrude@lexby.com. If you have webinar-specific questions, please address those to webinars@lexby.com. And thank you again. I hope you all enjoyed the webinar, and I look forward to seeing you at our next webinar.